that Steve Bartman touched that ball, he was pretty clear and pretty consistent in every way that he wanted nothing to do with the media. And so he was represented by an attorney, a family friend, and all communication with him was through the attorney. And there were letters, there were conversations, there was endless back and forth, but Steve really was clear that he was going to remain a private citizen. So we tried.
Tried hard. Well, in the course of the film, Bill Buckner manages to reach something of a peace and closure to his situation. Was there a hope that this film could potentially give Bartman the same sense of closure or forgiveness on either side?
You can hope. I think, Bill actually struggled with the idea of this film as well. And Alex flew to Boise, Idaho to meet Bill without the cameras, to have dinner with him after his first refusal. And then Bill changed his mind. Alex persuaded him, and he agreed to be part of the film. Mostly because his wife said, you've told this story so many times without the happy ending, and with the day in Fenway in 2008, you can now tell it with the happy ending. And so Bill has arrived at a place where he is largely moved on from everything that he went through in his moment of infamy. And there's a sense amongst those of us who have spent the last 2.5 years talking about this that perhaps that's part of what it means to be Steve Bartman, is an unwillingness to move on and an unwillingness to address it in that way. Of course, as everybody sort of understands implicitly, if the Cubs win, this all goes away.
Well, it looks like people are ready with some questions. You ready to go ahead and take those? Over here?
Yeah, thank you. Any sports fan who's been through, a horrible loss like 2003, you don't like to relive it. So I was amazed at how many diehard Cubs fans were willing to sit down and recount what must have been a painful memory. Now, do you think that maybe doing that, the film at the end talks us about, Bartman forgiving the city. Do you think doing that, going on camera for these Cubs fans, may have been a form of penance for the way they treated Bartman?
I'm not sure. I can say for sure Chicago is not excited about this film, about the idea of this film. When it was announced that we were going to do this film, there were editorials in the Chicago Trib. There was all kinds of viral activity on the web. Leave it alone, leave him alone, so on and so forth. I think the majority of Cub fans who were not in the ballpark that night pretty quickly came to the realization that Bartman was caught in the crossfire. There are not many today who really harbor any ill will towards him or really blame him. Nonetheless, that moment was the most awful moment or at least symbolizes the most awful moment of what Cub fans have been through for their lifetimes. And reminding people of unhappy circumstances is not, gets a lot of messengers killed. I think it's a tricky one, and I think that Bartman is really a metaphor, clearly a scapegoat. But the notion of blaming him is almost besides the point. At this point, he's just associated with that collapse.
Yes, over here.
Alex, good job on this. I'm born in Chicago.
I have to say, I'm not Alex. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
Gary, the producer.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Alex would love to be here today. He's actually he's in London working on his next film about WikiLeaks.
Anyway, so I was born just a couple miles from Wrigley Field, lifelong Cub fan. What would happen if someone took up a cause to forgive Steve Bartman, or would he or she have a bullseye on his head?
I don't think so. I think I think the consensus in Chicago is that Steve has very eloquently spoken by his silence, And his preference is to disappear into the, into the ether and not be a personality. And I don't think he's really looking for that. I know Eric Karros, who's in the film, told us he shot all these home movies of that year from the player's perspective. And he said the only thing that could make him release those films was if he made a film with Steve Bartman. There are any number of players. Kerry Wood said that if he had the opportunity, he would have Steve Bartman come out to the ballpark throughout the first pitch, and he would love to catch it. I think there's a tremendous sense of wanting to expunge Steve Bartman. And in many respects, I think he has been personally expunged. But I think that the incident is there, and they had this historic collapse right on the verge of the World Series, and that won't go away, and it's associated with him, much the way the Bill Buckner moment, was associated with the Red Sox for all those years.
Thanks very much.
That's right over here, please.
Just want to say thanks for a great film.
Wait, let me interrupt you for a second because I want to hear your question.
Yep.
You're very welcome. One thing I really always feel compelled to do in a situation like this is, this is an Alex Gibney film. He wrote it. It came from his experience and his mind and so on and so forth. But the execution of it took 2.5 years and took dozens of people working really long and really hard. And a few of them are here today, and I'd like to just acknowledge them. Libby Geist from ESPN. Libby, would you stand up, please? It's really rare that you get, a financing entity like ESPN supporting something so unqualified, and it was really fabulous to work with them. Matt McDonald and Nikki Uspe from Triple Threat TV. They lived this project for 2.5 years. So anyway, on to your question. Thank you.
Having said that, I just want to say I was really pained by one huge omission in the movie, which is that Chicago has won a World Series since 2003. And you commit the, endless sin of Cub fans by claiming that they're the only team in Chicago. But the White Sox did win in 2005.
Are they the guys with the funny black and white uniform? Apologies. I guess the narration was, was written in such a way to not distinguish it. Yeah. Chicago has become sort of America's team in a lot of ways, and and their story has sort of risen above a lot of other stories. But touche. Thank you for calling our attention to that.
Over here.
I remember when 30 by 30 first got announced. This was one of the first films. I was wondering, do you mind saying a few words about why it got delayed?
Yeah, it was just, it took a long time to really get it this way. Originally, this film was going to be a 1-hour television program, so 51 minutes long. And when we first presented it to ESPN, it was intended that it was going to air last October before the World Series. And they really liked it, and they really wanted us to do more with it. And Alex really felt like there was an opportunity to expand upon the original concept and go deeper. And so a lot of the elements of the film, particularly the aftermath, the security guard who took him into her apartment, a lot of the, from the Halloween stories to the internet, the viral internet condemnation, all of that stuff really sort of became clear. And the astonishing thing about doing a film like this is, over the course of time, you discover things. Matt McDonald was watching the game highlight, the actual game broadcast for about the 500th time. I would say 2 months before we were going to deliver the film, when he saw that shot of Steve Bartman waving after a foul ball in an earlier inning. And, that was just sort of this astonishing piece of forensic evidence, if you will, of who Steve Bartman is and, how remarkably ironic that was. The fan in the upper deck, a guy named Josh Doust, who shot home video from the upper deck looking down on Steve Bartman, didn't come to us until a couple of months before we were finished with the project. So by delaying it, all these other elements were brought forth for us, and the story got richer and deeper. And so now it's twice the original length. It was 100 minutes long, and it took a while to get there. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments in the audience? I have